Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Chair, and I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Ambassador Garasko and welcome members of the Ukrainian community to our gallery. Today I'll be sharing time with my colleague Robert O'Donoghue. For 3 years we have seen horrors on continental Europe that we hoped we'd never see again. We hoped in 1918 that we'd never see trench warfare. We hoped in 1945 that we'd never see tanks roll across the sovereign borders of another European nation. We hoped that we'd never see the ethnic cleansing that we saw in the Balkans in the 90s happen again. Unfortunately, all three and more are happening in Ukraine after the brutal, illegal and unprovoked attack and invasion by Russia 3 years ago, in what is a black and white violation of the UN Charter and international law. As of January 31st, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights reports the conflict-related violence has led to 12,605 civilian deaths and 29,178 civilians injured. The military death toll remains very, very high. The abuse and continued abuse of Ukrainian prisoners of war at the hands of the Russians, including torture and sexual violence, remains unabated. It is an absolute humanitarian catastrophe that is the causing and the making of Russia. When Russia made their illegal advances 3 years ago, they expected to roll over Ukraine in a matter of weeks. Instead, what they were met with was the indomitable spirit of the Ukrainian people. The Russians tried to lay waste to cities, target civilians, destroy infrastructure, to try and break the will of the Ukrainian people. And even with the support of the US and other Western powers, the odds were still stacked against Ukraine in the face of this Russian onslaught. However, Ukrainians have fought hard to defend their sovereign territory, although losing many men, women and children to do so. It is important in these times so fraught with uncertainty that we, as a nation, as Ireland, remember our values. Ireland is, yes, a military neutral country, but we are not, nor never have been, politically neutral in the face of illegal wars or indeed war crimes. Quite the opposite. Our position must always be informed by the principles that have driven our foreign policy for decades, since the foundation of the state. Principles that we as a nation cherish so deeply. Support for international human rights, for humanitarian law, for just peace settlements, and for a rules-based international order. The reality is that due to the last 3 years, our principles will be tested in the years to come. The ground on which we now stand is shakier than it has ever been, and the global alliances are not what they once were. Indeed, the European Union can no longer trust the American administration to be the friend and ally it has been since World War II. We, as Ireland, cannot accept a world order where the strong man pillages and plunders. Donald Trump and his cabal are acting in an utterly disgraceful manner. The direction of travel in relation to the invasion of Ukraine seems clear. Russia, it seems, would be rewarded for their illegal war of aggression through keeping the lands that they currently control. Ukraine, perhaps in exchange for security guarantees, though that remains unclear, will have to sell their natural resources to the United States in a deal which seems more like war reparations than it does an economic trade agreement between peer nations. We can read between the lines on what we know about this deal. This is the United States pillaging and plundering Ukraine for their rare materials and their natural resources. We have even heard this morning that the Ukrainian Parliament, members thereof, do not know even the basic details of what deal is being proposed. This is an international heavyweight bullying smaller nations. There is absolutely no justice in that. It is Russia who should be forced to resort to the rebuilding of Ukraine along pre-2022, in the first instance, borders. And it is the responsibility of the European Union to push back on any deal that cedes lands to the aggressor in this war. Make no mistake, Russian aggression will continue if they are allowed to continue to control any lands that they have illegally taken. If a peace settlement is foisted upon the Ukrainian people, Russia may stop for a few weeks or months or even a couple of years, but they will not be deterred indefinitely. Any settlement that does come must be based on a sovereign Ukraine if we want a just peace and one that will endure. We know that the next number of weeks will be vital in determining the international landscape we will face in the coming years, and we as Ireland must be prepared to push back on global superpowers dividing up a sovereign European country. We have already seen how that story ends. These rapidly shifting tides must also act as a reminder for Europe that we must not let any country's might or their financial resources determine or shape our shared values. To that end, it is clear Ireland must discover new nimbleness in our own foreign policy and honestly reassess who our true allies are and who we can rely on. For many years, we have punched above our weight diplomatically, and we have been a voice for peace across the world. That must continue, and we must redouble those efforts. We must also take the chance now to engage with our European allies to forge stronger alliances with one another, with an eye to further afield, and strengthen alliances with other like-minded nations such as Canada. It will be through these strengthened alliances that we can begin to separate ourselves from our reliance on an increasingly rogue United States, who have shown that on any given day they will leave us as they could leave Ukraine high and dry. If, as it seems, the United States move away from what has been a complex foreign policy, but one that has always at least claimed to be rooted in standing by its allies and promoting democracy, to a more transactional foreign policy in which they will deal with any nation on any issue to ruthlessly promote the Trump administration's own vision of American interests, then we, as an Irish nation, must stand firm. We are firmly in a new age of international relations, a darker age. If the latest video from Donald Trump's own social media platform in relation to Gaza is anything to go by, it is a grotesque dystopian vision of an international order. I welcome news that Ireland will contribute more financially in financial aid to Ukraine. We have to be more active in helping find a peaceful settlement to this war that removes Russia from Ukrainian land. Importantly, however, we also have to be stronger and louder with our own values. We cannot allow ourselves to shirk our own responsibilities or values on the world stage, and we must play a role ensuring that we see a free and liberated Ukraine. Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.